I would never put anything on my skin that I couldn't eat. And the reason is,
Welcome to Wellness, your ultimate guide to unlocking your full human potential through biohacking. I'm your host, Ashley Deeley. I'm a certified sports nutrition coach, former personal trainer, and Pilates instructor, and I have a degree in kinesiology. My goal is to help you improve the quality of your life. When you leave a review on any streaming app, or if you swipe up on Spotify and give me 5 stars, it helps listeners just like you find this hidden health information faster. As a clean beauty coach, I'm a fan of products that use tallow in their skincare, which is why I love Sacred Tallow. The reason I love tallow is because it's rich in vitamins A, D, E, and K, making it one of the most bioavailable moisturizers on earth. Studies even show that tallow's natural fatty acid profile mimics human sebum, helping to repair and strengthen the skin barrier from within. Visit sacredtallow.com/Ashley Deeley to find your discount. You spend about 1/3 of your life in bed, so the material you sleep on matters. Traditional mattresses are made with synthetic materials and fire retardants, and if you're going to spend at least 8 hours in bed, your body should be able to rest and relax and not breathe in harmful toxins. I would also never dream of sleeping on a mattress made with metal coils. The bed that I sleep on is made with a blend of beautiful, organic, GOTS certified cotton, wool, and it has a breathable surface and interior. Visit ashleydeeley.com/mattress. That's ashleydeeley.com/mattress. Have you heard of tallow skincare but haven't tried it yet? Or maybe you're wondering if it's worth all the hype? Well, if you're struggling with dry skin, acne, eczema, or a skin issue that you're looking to resolve, today you'll learn why tallow isn't just better for your skin, but your overall health. Today's guest is Brandon Zaragoza, the founder of Sacred Tallow, a company rooted in ancestral wellness and the belief that true healing comes from alignment with creation. Though born and raised in Minnesota, he spent 2.5 years in Maryland, surrounded by regenerative farms. There, Brandon immersed himself in holistic agriculture, learning directly from farmers and witnessing how creation-aligned practices reshape health from the soil up. After years in the fast-paced engineering and tech world, Brandon hit a point where his own health forced him to rethink everything. He stepped away from processed foods and industrialized skincare and returned to the time-tested wisdom of using the whole animal. That's where he discovered the unparalleled benefits of tallow, a nutrient-rich, bioavailable fat too often ignored by modern wellness. Sacred Tallow was born from this conviction, and I've never met a clean beauty formulator who has as strict of standards as I do. Brandon is committed to sourcing only 100% grass-fed, grass-finished suet from a regenerative American farm based in Montana and slow rendering it into pure, potent skincare, helping others reconnect with ancestral practices for whole body restoration. Not all tallow companies are created equally. From skincare to sautéing, today you're going to learn why tallow is an essential ingredient in your pantry and your bathroom cabinet. Brandon, welcome to Wellness.
happy to be here.
I am really thankful to have you here because I'm a fan of tallow. I think most people know I'm a clean beauty coach, but I would love to learn what made you start Sacred Tallow.
I would say the impetus came from, I started ever since I was a kid. Really, I always wanted to be the best version of myself and healthy. And I always cared about, just being the best that I could be. And, as a high school kid going into engineering school. So I actually started going to Iowa State University to do my mechanical engineering degree, where I got my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And yeah, I just always knew I wanted to be better, and doing engineering was good, and it gave me a sense of accomplishment, and I wanted to make the world a better place, but it never got to the root of my soul, the really root of my being inside. And I always knew that there had to be more than just making better things in this world. The world doesn't need a better Tesla. The world doesn't need a better rocket ship. Although the world may want you to think that, if you go and see, out the front door, this world is incredibly beautiful, and it's full of richness that doesn't come from a lab. It doesn't come from a manufacturing site. It's already there. And so that really opened my eyes to, once I, got a full-time engineering job, that this is not going to solve the problem. This is not going to scratch the real itch for me. So while I was living in Maryland, I was exposed to all the health and fitness influencers at the time as well on Instagram, and raw milk was becoming a really big thing. And I had to try it for myself. Being born and raised in Minnesota, it's not as common here. So I went to a local farm. I tried raw milk. I fell in love with it. I tried the raw natural diet, and I fell totally enamored with all of the beauty that can come from, right down the street, soil, into the food, into my body, and feel the richness and feel the healing. And so, yeah, I after 2.5 years working at an electric bike startup, I basically decided that i I can't see myself doing this forever. And I actually went on a farm tour, and I want to shout out the Maryland Grazers Network for allowing me to be a guest and to learn so much from the ancestral intuition and ancestral knowledge, with this knowledge that's been handed down from the beginning. You know what I mean? It's literally, these farmers have been farmers for generations, and all that knowledge, could get passed down to me. It was such a blessing. And, that knowledge and that beauty is something that you can't get from going to school. You can't get from buying it at a big box store. So that was the impetus of just like, I need to do something that can actually make the world a better place from what I thought, is better.
I really like that you had mentioned that you needed to scratch that itch. And I feel like being a mechanical engineer is one of the top engineering titles that you
Yeah.
can be. But I loved what you said about raw milk. And it reminds me of a story when I was in Montana. I found this woman online um, who offered raw milk. And I reached out to her and I said, "Can you tell me if your cow is grass fed?" And her response was, "I don't really know how to answer that because Betsy grazes on the farm and eats dandelions and anything she wants."
Yeah. That's beautiful. And that's really like, that is the truth. Like, when you can go and see and know the truth for yourself, you can go. That's what I would like suggest that everyone does, is, if just find, go on Google. The farms are there all around the nation. Go and see for yourself. Bother people, send emails. A lot of these people don't have nice websites or social media, but they're the nicest people in the world. You just have to go knock on the door and ask. And if you have kids, bring your kids there. That is the real school. Go and show them, and taste, smell, use all your senses. We're completely dissociated from reality nowadays, and it's so apparent. I don't have to talk about it really, but it's just so beautiful when you can meet somebody and consume the food we eat. Really becomes who we are. I've listened to some of the guests on your previous podcast, and they're a lot more tenured than I am, but they speak to that. We are what we eat, and we are what we ate. So, that goodness from the soil goes into especially cattle or any grazed animal, and it just becomes who we are. And all these diseases that we have, it starts from within.
You mentioned a really hot topic, soil. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There is so much great things about specifically grazed animals. We can start from maybe the farthest part away from the earth, which is the sun. So the sun is basically cooking us. And in engineering, you learn about radiation. The sun is beautiful. Without it, there would be nothing here. So if you think about the earth like a human body, the soil is our skin. And when it comes down to rain, which is like probably the next closest thing to the earth, which is the water, when the raindrops hit the surface of the earth, if you don't have anything protecting it, if you don't have a skin, it's going to, it impacts really strongly, and it breaks up the earth, and it actually leads to runoff, which is why if you ever go into the Midwest or a place where there's a lot of cornfields during a rainy season, there's always flooding. And the flooded water is always dark, murky. Well, that's because there's no organic matter covering the soil. And so without that, basically, if you zoom in on a raindrop, the raindrops hitting the ground really hard, really fast. And without something to slow it down, that water is not going to trickle. It's going to impact the earth, and then the mud is going to slip away. And so that's what's happening. I actually helped one of my friends here has a goat farm, Poplar Hill Goat Farm in Minnesota. I helped him. I was planting some clover. Every year, he's telling me that these rocks come from underneath the ground, and he needed help picking them up. I go out and help him pick rocks, and then I started to wonder: these rocks aren't just magically popping up out of the ground. That's not how gravity works. What's happening is the rain is hitting the top of the soil and there's nothing there. It's just dirt. It's like this empty dirt, no microbes, and it's just running off all of the soil. And all that's left is all this rock. So every year he has to do that. And you see it more and more. If you talk to any farmer that does this mass monocrop stuff, there's so many things, so many band-aids. You think about a boat with a bunch of holes in it. They have to keep patching and patching and patching. Whereas if you just did it right the first time, you wouldn't have to do all these band-aid solutions. And that's the reality of farming. So that's the water part. Once the water is kind of slowed down, it can trickle into the roots. And if you look at the roots of, say, beans or monocrop corn, it's only about a few inches, and they usually fall over. The stalks are not very strong. They genetically engineer it to just be as good as it can be, just to hold it up. But it's not the same as if you dig into the ground, which I've seen personally in Maryland. These roots are feet long, not inches, feet long. And all that porous root is, as the water's trickling in, that water is being absorbed. The soil actually is retaining the water, which is completely different from it running away. And it has a multiple fold benefit for us. So the soil itself is like a solar panel. It's absorbing and it's sequestering all that carbon from the air and retaining the water, so that way it can continue to grow and flourish and multiply. I'm sure most of your listeners, if not most people, have seen the movie Interstellar. You remember what kind of farm that was? It wasn't a beautiful farm with grass-fed cows. It was a giant cornfield with a bunch of robots. And so if you want to get away from the Dust Bowl dystopian future, it's not going to be from plant-based meat in a lab. It's just like we're burning the candle at both ends with that mentality, instead of going at it from what is on the inside and how can we go from the inside out, which is really, I mean, you'll hear it from me over and over again, but going at things from the inside out is definitely the way forward. Going through is the way forward.
There's a book that I read. I'll see if I can remember it later on in the show. But the author is one of the best botanists on the planet. And she was talking about how when we plant monocrops, we take away so many things from the soil. Whereas if we get back to nature and you plant what's called three sisters, I think it's beans, corn, squash. She talks about the nitrates from one of the, I don't know if it's the beans or the squash. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. I won't say I'm an expert, but it is true that when you have these things working in synchronicity, it's just how it's supposed to be. You talked about the nitrates and phosphorus, and there's these important chemicals that every plant needs in varying amounts. And they can feed each other. And it's beautiful. Go to a farm and ask them questions. They know that this information is not necessarily gatekept. It's just, they're not on social media. They're just trying to live an honest life. That is the most valuable thing. There's nothing I can tell you that's going to be more precious to the listener than to just go and see for yourself and to feel it, feel it, taste it, touch it, smell it. If you pick up dirt that's from a healthy land, healthy soil, it's moist typically, and it's full of these microbes, billions of microbes. All of this interaction, it's its own ecosystem. A big problem with humanity is just that we can't see things with the naked eye. The unseen of this world, of our lives, of our reality, is way more valuable and way more important than the things that we can't see. Not to be super esoteric or anything, but there's so much that you don't see. And the microbes are things that you literally can't see unless you look under a microscope. From afar, there's two farms, and they both have corn. Unless you can really look and see what's there and not just what you think plainly, you'll see that there's two completely different, you're talking about one that's completely sterilized, which is a monocrop farm. And we're talking about Roundup, which kills everything but the corn. And where do we think that glyphosate's going? Into the soil, into the corn, into the aisles of our grocery stores. It's just a huge travesty, honestly. It's terrible.
We are very much aligned in that thinking. The book I was thinking of was called Braiding Sweetgrass. So if anybody wants to learn a little bit more, I'll put that in the show notes. But also, what you had mentioned about a few other guests on my show, I had Joel Salatin on my show.
I love that episode.
Yeah. And I learned from him that if a cow eats one blade of grass, that cow is considered grass fed. So, what is regenerative compared to grass fed, Brandon?
Wonderful. It really goes to the heart of today's food. All of our food and the buzzwords, like he was saying, as soon as something like grass fed comes out or organic, and it's just going to happen that we keep switching the terms, we're going to have to be the ones as individuals to be practicing health. That's never going to go away. We're going to have to be practicing health. It doesn't matter what trends are out there or what buzzwords are out there. You're going to have to decide for yourself. You're going to have to do your own digging. So as it relates to grass fed, there's a lot of videos online I've seen of, grass being poured in front of cattle in a giant manufacturing site and a giant, indoor facility. And it's like how, and everyone just thinks that that's the same as grazing. And it's not. You really, like, again, go to the farm, see it for yourself. And like you said, with your friend in Montana or the farmer in Montana, cows don't just eat grass. They eat a diverse diet, which is another layer that differentiates grain fed from grass fed, or, and more importantly, regeneratively pasture raised animals. And they're getting a diversity in their diet. And that shows up in the meat and that shows up in the tallow. For Sacred Tallow myself, I decided from the beginning that I was always going to have 100% grass-fed and finished beef suet tallow in our products. That's something that I'm sticking to, and people are like, why tallow? That goodness from the soil, you're getting vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, CLA, omega-3, all these things that are not that common are very hard to find if not supplemented with grain fed. This is the bioavailable form of goodness. I would never put anything on my skin that I couldn't eat. And the reason is tallow is unlike any other skincare ingredient. It's non-comedogenic and it's full of vitamins and rich nutrients. You look at skincare creams and they try to isolate these vitamins. They isolate these lab synthetic forms of omega-3, and it's not the bioavailable natural form. And everyone is being sold a lie. I mean, cosmetics is a huge, massive trap. I'll just say it. No cosmetic founder ever said that it's a trap, but I'm going to say it. It's a trap. We need to take a step back, go from the inside out.
I have so many questions about Sacred Tallow, but wait, first, I wanted to go back. You've actually seen cows being fed grass that was previously picked from somewhere that maybe could have had pesticides on it, and it was just dumped in front of them. And then I'm assuming the marketing is allowed to say that they're grass-fed.
100%. When I first started, I wanted USDA organic beeswax, and I got it from Amazon. I thought it was the best stuff because it said USDA organic, and USDA organic should be the best, right? And that's what I thought. But the reality is you can't really get USDA organic beeswax in the United States. It's really hard to, because you have to have a certain mile radius. And so what I was thinking was a good product that says USDA organic was coming from China. And who knows what that means? And for all we know, that could be in a lab. And it's just like, yeah, there's no pesticides on it. But it's like, that doesn't necessarily mean it's good. And then so I bought some stuff that isn't USDA organic from Illinois, and it's 10 times better. It's insane. I only had to use a third of the amount of beeswax to get the thickness properties. So it's like there's so many things that are going to have to come back to the individual and being in a state of practicing their health and doing their own research, because reality is not always as it seems.
This is why I'm really thankful for your work and your company, because it sounds like you've tinkered and played around with the formulations and looked at ingredients and gone, oh, I thought USDA would have higher standards than that.
That's right. I mean, it's been 2 years now of every single day, either I'm making tallow, I'm thinking about new recipes or formulations, I should say. Although it's so healthy you can eat, so sometimes I say recipes. Even the sunscreen, I'll go to the beach and I'll just do it in front of people. I'll just eat the sunscreen and people will be like, what are you doing? Or what is that? And I'll be like, it's sunscreen, And so, yeah, it's just like, it's been such a journey. And let me tell you, the first batch of tallow balms that I made was just so not the same as today. And I feel bad for the first customers that I had because I was so grateful, but
Oh,
at the same time, it's like, it had a beefy smell to it. It just probably was hard as a rock and just was not great. Not nearly as good as it is today. So I will be the one to say that it was not that great at the beginning, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So right now we got a full line of moisturizers, and yeah, it's so great. And now I'm doing more in-person events and being able to sell in person and letting people try. And let me tell you, like being able to see people's reactions, having people come back to me the same day and being like, oh man, look at the difference. And, that's something about being an online business that can be really hard. There's always going to be that need to be in person. And man, I love it. I love being able to interact with people, and I love being able to help people.
oh, that makes my heart happy. And I'm sure listeners are resonating as well. Are there any uses that wouldn't be mainstream for using tallow?
Yeah. So, I mean, as a guy, I use it as an aftershave, actually. And you can use it as a conditioner for your hair, for your beard. And I like to use it, honestly, like kind of like as a shaving cream. I know a lot of shaving creams nowadays, they're like basically all synthetic. So it's just terrible. I don't want that on my skin, especially when you're cutting lacerations, micro lacerations into your skin from a razor blade. You don't want any of that stuff going near you. I know I take off the little like soothing strip from my razor
Oh,
because I don't
yeah.
want that like
Yeah.
whatever chemicals are on that. I don't want that going into my skin. Tallow can be great for like your hair and stuff. I know dogs, some people have like some of their dogs have like paw issues or like have dry patches on their skin. If you want to use like the whip towel that's super plain, I would use that. Obviously, they might want to lick it because they probably get hungry having it on. But yeah, the hair, the face. A lot of people say, "Can I use it as a night cream or face cream?" And you have these brands that charge $50 for like a tub of water and chemicals. Tallow is a great facial moisturizer on the eyes. People ask if I can use it like as a morning or night cream, and I say all the time yes, and it's going to be way better than your expensive synthetic cream.
So if you use it in your beard or in your hair, would you wash it out or leave it on? Because I know sometimes my husband will get a flaky beard and I just don't want his beard to be oily.
I think you could wash it out, but if he washes it anyways every day, then that could be good. And it could be oily, but the thing is, like over time, the flakiness will go away. So it's like the thing that's different about tallow is it really does go into your skin, whereas like a lot of other oils are not as biocompatible and kind of just sit on top. So you notice a difference. The greasiness feeling that you get from putting it on right away goes away, especially if your pores are opened after a shower after like 15 minutes. So you put it on while your pores are open and it gets, it's like seeps in, and then the shininess goes away. So it really does get absorbed.
My friend Alyssa was telling me that when she first tried tallow, she put it on and then her dog wouldn't leave her alone. And she also said it smelled a bit beefy. So, what do you do to make your tallow not smell like a steak?
This is the $1 million question. There's two methods that go into it, and that's dry and wet rendering. So dry rendering is, so we have the hard suet fat, which not all companies use suet tallow. So suet tallow or suet is the hard, white, dense fat around the kidneys or the organs inside of the cow, which is where the most nutrients is. And a lot of other companies don't necessarily always use a suet. They use other fat trimmings and they get muscle meats and ligaments and tendons in there. And that's what can add to the smell. When you use the nutrient-rich suet fat, however, it's usually the most odorless version. So the first thing you usually do is you heat it up as a dry render, and it can take many hours. It just depends on what you want to do. Some people want to do it quicker. Some people, like me, like to do it low and slow. And then you can strain out any of the fat and other things that aren't proteins, like I said, ligaments, all those other things. You can strain those out. Then once you go into the wet rendering stage, you can add a little bit of salt, you add a little bit of water, heat it up for a long time, a low heat. Then once it cools down, it becomes this hard puck. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see a lot of videos and you can look up how to render it at home yourself. But you flip over the tallow puck now that it's cold, and on the bottom, so the difference between water and fat, right, is the fat is a lot less heavy. So it rises to the top. You flip it over, you scrape off the bottom, and now you'll have the white fat. And you keep doing that multiple times. And so even though I currently purchase my tallow, suet tallow from Montana, actually, It's called V-Bar Montana, and it's a tool actually that sourced locally, and I render it further after that. So wherever I'm going to get my tallow in the future, if I have my own farm, which is the goal, is to have Sacred Tallow Ranch, which would be amazing. I'm going to make sure that it's always the highest quality outcome as far as purity. And it just takes more time. And I actually have an idea. And if any of your listeners want to help, is I want to make kind of like a steam distiller. So, and they have these big deodorizers, but it's just going to be steam that comes up from underneath the container, and the steam bubbles are going to bubble through the tallow, and then those steam bubbles take away the scent, which is like an essential oil distiller. So instead of the plant oils being steam distilled, it would be the scent from the tallow. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be a good idea. Maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything about it. And somebody else is going to take my idea, but whatever, I'm only going to live once. So
Now that's the mechanical engineer in you coming out.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm trying to hold on to it. I can't let go, I guess.
Well, I'm from Montana, so that makes me very happy that you get your tallow from Montana. I want to know what the word rendering means. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who's maybe cooking for the first time and they read a recipe and they don't know what sauteing is, but it's just cooking with tallow. So what's rendering?
You're distilling the fat from the animal. So you have all this connective tissue that's holding everything together in the animal. And that is not something that you want to be in the final product, which is why I strain everything through organic cotton cheesecloths, just to make sure that there's nothing that isn't fat, it's just pure fat. And like I said, you can do it really fast and at a high temperature. The thing with doing everything low and slow is that you're retaining the chemical structure of all those fat molecules. You're not breaking any of them down, and that helps with a longer storage life and preventing rancidity. So all of our products have a 6-month shelf life. And a lot of people don't realize this, but if you put it in the fridge or the freezer, it's just like any other food, right? It's going to last twice as long. So yeah, we're talking a year long. So people are usually worried. They come and ask me like, oh, but the thing is, I want to use it next summer. And I'm just like, okay, throw it in your fridge until you're ready to use it. And then you're good to go. People don't realize that natural stuff can last that long, but that's just how it works.
I wanted to go back to what you mentioned about eating sunscreen because I love edible beauty. I want to hear more about the edible sunscreen that you make.
Yeah, so our edible sunscreen has non-nano zinc oxide. A lot of people ask like, oh, what makes it sunscreen versus something that isn't? And so non-nano zinc oxide is that active ingredient. It's called a physical barrier. So it's not like a chemical barrier. So it is a little different from what people are normally used to, which is probably the main reason people have a hard time switching over, is because people are so accustomed to just spraying things on, set it and forget it. People don't like to put in a little bit of extra effort. But the reality is it's like you might save a little time, but you're making your whole skin microbiome like worse, and those chemicals are seeping into your skin. So our sunscreen, our sun balm has, as all of our products are, the main ingredient is always going to be tallow. Then we have coconut oil, olive oil, and beeswax. So everything's organic. And then we have the non-nano zinc oxide, which we use 20%, which is just high enough for it to be around SPF 35.
Wait,
And
Brandon, this is where I have to interrupt you. I know you're on a roll and I'm so excited. I only use sunscreen on my face, and I've read so many research studies that say the zinc oxide you use on your face has to be between 18 and 20% to make a difference. And I've reached out to companies who say, oh, we use 10%, we use 12. You're getting, the SPF coverage that you need. But yours has the 20%, which I was really impressed with. So I wanted to say thank you for adding 20%.
You're welcome. Yeah, the SPF 35, it's like if you go swimming, if you're sweating, it's a physical barrier. So, and if you're wiping yourself off with a towel, it's not there anymore. So people don't realize that you have to reapply, and it reapply more frequently than a chemical sunscreen. And some people may see that as a bother. And if it is, then, go back to the chemical sunscreen and deal with the issues, and then come back and then realize that, do some more research and come back. And I want everyone to have healthy skin. It's not that I want anyone to suffer or anything like that. Every time I go to the beach and I see a little kid being sprayed with aerosol and literally cancer causing chemicals, read the label. It says, if any of this is ingested or whatever, call poison control. It's like these things are right in front of our face, hiding in plain sight. And that's why I started this. I want the world to be a better place. It's about helping another person. And that's what it's all about for me.
I love that you mentioned spraying down kids with the chemical sunscreen because I was listening to another podcast and I forget if it's an oxybenzonate. I forget what the exact chemical name was, but it is clinically known to lower your testosterone. So not only in adults using it, but also your children, you're already lowering their testosterone as kids and potentially setting them up for fertility issues.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten to a place in culture where it's, some people like to romanticize doing things that hurt their health. You know what I mean? We've come to this place where we're so disconnected from the source we're so disconnected from life. You know what I mean? And it's like we need to get back into the driver's seat. We love taking a back seat. We love the robo taxi where we can just get in and not look out the window and see what's going on our phone and disconnect. And I see this as a huge opportunity going forward for these experiences and things like that, for getting people, this is why farm tours are popping, like
Yeah.
you have the ballerina farm where people can go and see, and these things are always going to be valuable, and we just need to get back in the driver's seat and take control of our lives because no one's coming to save us.
The longer and healthier we live, the better. And if you're slathering yourself with literal carcinogens, you're going to decrease the quality of life. You're not going to be around for people as long as you hoped you could be to make the world a better place. Tallow is something that's edible. And this is why it's okay to end up in your body, whereas chemicals can have a deleterious effect. Also, on the topic of sunscreen, I just wanted to say, I love your sunscreen with my whole heart. It feels like Cool Whip. Like it's the softest. I have never put anything so soft on my face. And this is not to just, I don't know, beef you up, if you will. It's literally the most wonderful thing I've ever put on my face. How do you make it so, I don't know, like so whipped and light?
Yeah, so definitely when I first started, it was not that way. And if my first customers, I'm sure they did not reorder. They can tell you if you find them, they will say that it was clumpy and the zinc was not mixed in all the way. And if anyone's ever tried to make their own sunscreen, they know that if they don't use an immersion blender or they don't use some type of vigorous agitation, that non-nano zinc oxide is just going to clump up. And a lot of people use nano zinc oxide, but and I don't know if necessarily that's going to be a whole lot better or a whole lot different. But I'm just trying to make the healthiest thing I can, and I'm trying to make it to the best of my ability. And that's with the sun balm. It's like every time I make it, it's like, okay, what can be different? And I try a little something different, and then I add to that. And a lot of people don't realize, like, even though things are simple, it's like these products, if I change the coconut oil supplier, or I change the beeswax supplier, the whole formulation needs to be reassessed. So this is like a meticulous thing that I take with a lot of seriousness. I if anyone has an issue, I refund them. I send them more stuff, and I try to make things right. And that's probably the biggest difference between what I think Sacred Tallow is and a lot of other skincare companies. You email info@sacredtallow.com. That goes to my inbox. I'm checking it personally. I respond. That's what sets me apart, and that's what I want to shine through.
All right. So it's the immersion blender that makes
It's
it
the immersion blender. Sorry, I
so
always keep on
wonderful.
going on tangents. I forget what we're talking about. But yes, yeah. If you use an immersion blender, I mean, I can tell you the secret. So first, you want to heat up the beeswax because that's the hardest thing to heat up. Then you go in with the tallow, and then once that's kind of all melted, you turn off the heat, and then you add the coconut oil because that melts really quickly. And then I add in the non-nano zinc oxide, and I immersion blend that. And the thing with the extra virgin olive oil, this is like Michelin star quality. This is comes from Atlas in Morocco. Super long shelf life, first cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. Then at the end, after all that's put together, then I add the olive oil because you don't want to heat that up too high
Yes.
because then
Wait,
you
I
ruin the
just want to interrupt
polyphenols.
you again. This
Yeah,
is so huge. And I don't think people understand this.
no,
This
they
is
don't.
why I don't allow most oils, unless they have a high heat like coconut or jojoba. This is why I don't allow them in my skincare routine. So I love to hear that you add the olive oil last and that it's not heated.
That's right. And it's literally more expensive than the tallow. It is the highest quality extra virgin olive oil I can reasonably get. So and it's the, I mean, we have stuff in our cupboards that's not as good as the stuff that I use in the tallow. I'm like, it's just like, it is the highest quality stuff. So
Oh my
yeah, olive oil
gosh.
is very, very delicate. I used to cook in it, and now I only use it. You're supposed to only use it as like toppers and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And who doesn't love a good piece of like Italian bread or something with olive oil? So every now and then, but
Okay, that makes me really happy. And also, just as a side note, coming from a girl, can you please make one that's tinted? Like add some cacao powder. I need it to not look so white on my face.
yes. So there is a technique, and the technique is you add. So first, if you can add a moisturizer, specifically Sacred Tallow moisturizer, that would be ideal. But that adds like a nice base layer to your skin. And so if you look at the little non-nanozic oxide, if it doesn't have, it can get caught in your skin and stuff, and then so it's hard to moisturize or spread in. But then you go with very light, and I would show you right now, but you just go in with a, here, I actually have some right here.
Wow.
So you just go in and you take a very small amount, you know, and then you go in with the light layer,
Mhm.
and then that's when it completely absorbs in. But if you go globbing it on, that non-nanozic oxide doesn't have a whole
Oh,
lot of
that's
capacity to spread.
that's what it
So
looks
then
like
it
when I put it on my face.
then it then it will become all pasty white, and people are like, how do I not look like a ghost? And so that's the trick: light layers, one at a time, and have fun with it. Have an enjoyable process of like slowly massaging it in, and yeah, and then it becomes not so pasty white. But that is a great point, and I'm thinking of different ways. There's blue tansy or chamomile, which will make it blue. I've tried personally the cacao ones, but if you have anything white, it will stain your white cacao brown, and people might ask you questions. So if you're wearing a white bathing suit and you use cacao infused,
Okay.
might be a little questionable. But I am thinking of that, and that's something definitely to look out for as I tried these different
Mm.
formulations. So I try to do everything really slowly and make sure I don't, make anything faster than it's appropriate. So
Oh, beauty secrets from a boy. I love
I
it.
know, I know. Yeah, people are like, why skincare? I'm just like, it was the easiest thing for me to start. It's like, I don't need the perfect product. I just need to help people. So, initially I was thinking of beef jerky. And I still am
Oh.
passionate about beef and regenerative beef. I mean, in my story, it's like, eating regenerative beef is what healed a lot of my random sicknesses that I would have. And so I do believe in consuming it, and not a lot of skincare founders are going to say it's more important what you put in your body than what you put on your skin. But I think it is. It is important. But what is the best thing to put on your skin when you have an issue, like, or anything, just like natural dryness? It's going to be tallow, in my opinion.
It's funny. I went to the dermatologist a few years ago, and this was before I learned and diagnosed myself with mast cell activation syndrome, but I couldn't stop itching my legs. I would itch them every day until they bled. And I remember going to the dermatologist, and she gave me something that was petroleum based. And I was like, if I'm not going to put petroleum based products on my skin, but
Right.
I knew there was something better. And to your point, I had to go researching. I had to find it. I had to change my diet. I did a really intense cleanse. I found tallow skincare. And that's one of the reasons I'm so thankful for your work. And just a little side note, but I wanted to quiz you. You had mentioned it, but do you know what one of the most expensive ingredients in skincare on the planet is?
Hmm. Wow. I don't know. I don't know.
It's blue tansy.
Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, like I use frankincense and myrrh resin oils, and those are really
Yeah.
expensive. I mean, those are like, $30 for a little jar. You know what I mean? And I don't necessarily really make any money off of the adding those scents because I have a huge upcharge, but it's just like I love it so much. It's just like, people want it. I'm gonna give it to you. So, but yeah,
And
that's not surprising.
are those essential oils organic?
Yes, they are. They're 100% USDA organic. I know we talked about the USDA, like what is it? Is it good or is it not? But I try to just source the healthiest stuff. It's like that is what I'm most important about this brand is like how can I just make the healthiest most natural thing. And I try not to add any extra fluff, no preservatives. Like again, so healthy you can eat is something that I want to stand the test of time. You know what I mean? Like if I'm not gonna feel comfortable putting it in my mouth, I don't want to put it on my skin. Not necessarily that you're gonna go and eat it because just to like, prove a point, but just to say that like, our skin is an organ. And then people say it's the largest organ. It is a part of us. And just like the fabric of a shirt, if you pull one side, everything else goes with it. That's how our body is. If you mess with one thing, you're going to mess with the whole thing. Again, back to the circle. It's like, that is us.
I like the analogies that you share. I feel like it makes it really easy for me to understand what you're talking about. And also about what goes on our skin. I forget what the statistic is, but how many women eat how many tablespoons or pounds of their own lip gloss or lipstick that they put on every year?
100%. That's why our lip balm only has 3 ingredients: tallow, beeswax, and raw honey. There it is.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So I'm traveling right now, but this is literally one of my favorite products. I use it all day, every day. I use it before bed. It is literally one of my favorite things. So I would love to hear what are some of your top sellers.
I love to hear that.
I love it.
Our newest product is our whipped vanilla with calendula. A lot of brands use essential oils, and I do too. But something that's unique about this product and all of our whipped vanilla products is that I scrape out vanilla beans from vanilla beans, and I infuse the tallow with the vanilla beans, and then I strain it out after, which, as you can see, there's no little black specks in here. And I also add 20% extra virgin olive oil, that same extra virgin olive oil that we're talking about, and I infuse that with calendula flowers. And so that sits out and for weeks at a time and just gets all that good plant extract, and it just makes for a really nice, light, soft balm. I'll have to send you one. And it's actually my favorite product. I use it all the time. The best time to use moisturizer is after you have the shower. The bathroom's all steamy. If you live somewhere that's cold and dry, the feeling. You get out of the shower, and if you don't put some on, that dryness like hits you like crazy. So that's the best time to use it. And that's my favorite new product. That's the one that's been selling the most. And I'm just super proud of it, just because, I go from, have at the beginning having beefy smelling, it's like just tallow and beeswax, and I don't even know what else I was adding to it, to now this like premium product that it's affordable. A little goes a long way. I think that's the thing that people don't realize the most with this skincare is like, especially for like the moisturizer, people, like when I go give samples and stuff like that, people grab like what you'd think a lotion bottle, like how much a lotion bottle. So maybe like the size of a penny or something. But if you use just a pea-sized amount, this jar is going to last you so long. I mean, like months, depending on how you use it, right? If you use it all over your body, maybe it'll last you a few weeks. If you use it just on your face and your hands, months, so it's just about how you use the product.
Are there any healing powers or, I don't know, special essences of calendula that made you choose that specific flower?
Yeah, so calendula is used in a tea. A lot of people drink it actually, and it has a lot of soothing properties. So for inflamed skin or skin that is very irritable, it helps to relax and just soothe skin really well. The vanilla, I don't really know, honestly, like if it has, added benefits other than it just smells really nice.
Yeah.
And it feels good. I try to research as much as I can, but I don't always research if it's just like, people use it in tea, as a soothing property, and people use it on skincare, it's like, that's good enough. Let me try and see if it works. Let me feel how it works. Let me ask other people. So I like to go the tactical route and just like the in-person route sometimes too. But don't get me wrong. I am a mechanical engineer at heart. I research everything. It's like, we're talking +1, -1%. Like I try it all. So,
okay.
yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay. Another thing I love about your company, which I really want to make sure we talk about, is that you store your products in glass and cardboard. So why did you choose those materials?
Yeah, and actually, I'll take it one step further. I think this is the only sunscreen and moisturizer that is 100% plastic free. So our sun balm and body balm has food grade silicone. I had these specially made, so they didn't normally come with this. That's the other engineering thing about me, is like I reached out to a different manufacturer to make these food grade silicone seals. So it's literally just glass, silicone, and bamboo. It's like, I wouldn't be honest with myself if I had the best stuff on the inside and then encased it in something that could leach
I
plastic.
know.
And it
I know.
happens all the time. You look at other brands, and I know I'm being honest with myself when I say like this is as healthy as I can make it. And it's like people want, the lotion bottle. People want the ease of being able to just pop and squeeze and get it out and throw it on and just go out the door. And I understand that. I like it too. But, this is a product that's not, it doesn't conform to those standards. It's like sacred. What does sacred mean? Sacred means to be set apart. We're talking about something that is, not with the whole bunch. It's on its own. It's in its own league. It's just coming at it from a different approach of like, okay, let me have an experience with my product. Let me like really observe what is there instead of just like, oh, it's a sunscreen, just like throw it on, or oh, it's a moisturizer, just like throw it on and not be really present. So it's like connecting to what you're using and what you have on your skin is just another layer of added benefit for both you, and the product lasts longer and you use it the right way. The fat is the most treasured part of the animal. So when I came up with Sacred Tallow, I was like, okay, how can I tie together this ancient wisdom and tallow? And I wanted tallow to be the main ingredient, and it always will be in the products. I want to stand on something. I want to stand on a firm ground with this brand so people can know it's always going to be tried and true. It's not going to be like something where like a lady came up to me and she was like, is it cruelty free? And I was like, no, it's not. And she walked away, and I was like, but in a way it's like, this is more cruelty free than anything else. You look at the combines, you look at the big machinery, whole deer, like baby fawns are being thrown into like combines. And like, it's like, I don't know if you ever realize that, but billions of little animals die every single year from factory farming, from monocrop agriculture. Just picking up corn seems harmless, right? But there's millions of little mice and, billions of birds and stuff like that get caught in there. And it's just like, the reality is people don't like to hear the reality, obviously, especially in today's world, but death has to happen. It's just a part of the cycle. It's less cruelty. It's less cruel to let cows live on pasture, even if they do get harvested later, than to never let them live to begin with. It's like this dystopian, let's just like put everything in a lab and just like disconnect from everything and just act like, sunshine and rainbows. That's not reality. And we're all going to die one day. And we need to realize that death is a natural part of our existence, and sacrifice has to happen. When you sacrifice the life of an animal, historically speaking, especially like in the early 1900s when mass farm production started happening, tallow was being underutilized. Especially World War II, you have Crisco and machine lubricants then turning into food. And now it's making a huge comeback in skincare, but we need to be eating it. We need to be frying, searing our steaks in it. We need to be making French fries how they used to be made at McDonald's. French fries are amazing. If you've never tried French fries cooked in tallow, you don't have the brain fog. It's wonderful.
I really appreciate you giving that explanation and the stories behind it. And I didn't know how sacred the fat was in a cow. I have a story I don't think you know, but when I first came across your company on Instagram, I think I let out a big sigh. This is usually what I do when I research companies that I hear for the first time. I'm like, okay, let's see what ingredients they use. Let's see what materials they use to package it in. And then I find out that it's subpar and I call them out on it. I say, you use titanium dioxide. You're storing it in plastic. Oh, I really like your shampoo bar, except it's made with rice protein that you don't need. But when I researched your company, I looked around like I was being punked. And I was like, is this a real company? Because these are the ingredients that I would use if I had my own company.
Wow, amen. Amen to that. Yeah, I mean, I go to these farmers markets, and it's really sad. It's really sad because I want to support people that are trying to make an honest effort and make extra income for themselves. And they sell stuff that seems natural. They make it homemade and it's handcrafted, and it's wonderful. Sometimes it even looks beautiful. And then I'll have like palm oil and non-organic versions of, or like sourdough. I was like, oh, I really want to buy like, sourdough that way. I can talk to the person that made the sourdough. And then it's got, canola oil or just like these weird things in it. It's very unfortunate. I could just fall into it and say like, oh, just like, it's okay, and do what most people do is just like give people the benefit of the doubt. Or I can take agency in my life and just be like, you know what, I can talk to this person about, if their product was different in XYZ way, then I would buy it. or I can just, have brain fog and feel terrible and just say like, woe is me. So it does take a lot of agency in today's world. There's so many tricks. There's so many fakes, counterfeit versions of everything. And I want to say something too. Like when I was in college, I remember I was in an English class and I had to watch the movie or the documentary Cowspiracy. I don't know if you're familiar with it,
No.
but Cowspiracy is all about how cow basically methane production from their like excrement and just farts, like cow farts basically, is ruining the
Mhm.
world. How cow farts produce more carbon, like put more carbon and methane into the sky and into our ecosystem than every car, train, plane, bus, boat combined. And I believe that. And I was drinking like almond milk and soy and all this stuff, and just no connection to like what I was really putting in my body. Just like kind of trusting. I just, what most people do, what I used to do, and what sometimes I still fall prey to, is just trusting that what I see is right. So the Cowspiracy thing is like, I believe that, and I thought it was true because of documentary. You watch an hour of something, and it's easy to believe it. And sometimes it's good because sometimes what they're saying is true, and sometimes it's not. It's complete opposite from when I went to the Maryland Grazing Network and went to family farms and learned from them and got to see firsthand that not only is like the farts or the methane that comes out of
Mhm.
cows is like a drop in the bucket compared to all the beauty, because the actual soil is like the grass itself is eating all of the methane. It's eating all of the
Mhm.
carbon in the air. But without it, we're empty. We have nothing. It's a dust bowl. Again, Interstellar. It's just complete dust bowl. Then there's nothing. There's nothing to protect us from the sun, and there's nothing to hold on to the water. And it's like, if we can solve the soil, the skin of the earth, we're going to solve a lot more problems than I think most people will realize.
Well, if you want another documentary to watch that sounds the opposite from Cowspiracy, it's Dark Waters with Mark Ruffalo.
Oh, I have not
That
watched that yet. Oh, is that the tank? Is that the tank paint with Teflon? Is that
I can't tell you. You're just gonna
okay?
have to watch it.
Yeah, I watched a snippet, and so but I definitely will watch that. Dark
Yes.
Waters, you said.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so speaking of Teflon and cooking in pans and whatnot, you said that you can cook with tallow. And I'm curious to learn, if we want to buy tallow to cook with, do we want wet tallow, dry tallow? What are we supposed to be looking for?
Well, first of all, I would try and so I use farmmatch.com. It's a website that connects people all around the United States with local farms. And so that's the first place I would look.
Okay.
Look local if you can. Secondly, look for regeneratively raised, pasture raised. We talked about grass fed is not really grass fed. If it's grass fed and grass finished, actual structure, if you think about like, what is the tallow made out of? It's made out of what the cow eats. So you think of how much nutrients is in grass or natural weeds and all those things, all the microbes. And what is a ruminant? It's supposed to ruminate on the grass. We need to be ruminant, and we need to be ruminants. We need to consume information and really sit with it. And we need to take in the information we're listening to and try it for ourselves and be the one living our lives. Try and find a local farm. Try and get the 100% grass fed, pasture raised, local tallow from a farmer. Maybe it comes in a mason jar, but try it. You know what I mean? And see the difference.
Okay, I appreciate that. You said farmmatch.com.
Farmmatch.com.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not farmers only. So don't worry. You're not going to find yourself a Mennonite wife or Amish wife or husband.
Well, maybe that's what
Maybe
the
you
audience
will
is
too.
looking for.
That's right. You could as well.
Okay, Brandon, I have a two-part question.
Okay.
What is the most wild thing you've heard of someone doing with tallow?
I learned that it's like a huge bird seed thing, like a bird feeder. I did not realize this, but it's massively used in the bird feed industry. And you think of birds, they're like raptors, they're little dinosaurs. You look at a chicken is like a dinosaur. It's like a little dinosaur. But anyways, birds eat, all kinds of stuff, and they can obviously eat meat, and it's just very interesting that if you do any amount of research, if you can, if the listeners can do this, just research infographic of a cow and what it used to be used for. And you realize cows were used for everything: glue, candles, leather. Obviously, we used to use the entire part of the cow for normal everyday stuff, like Elmer's glue. There's a cow on it. There's nothing about a cow in that glue anymore. You know what I mean?
I didn't
So
even think of that.
yeah, and
There's
it's
a
just
cow
like,
in it.
Yeah. I don't really know how the glue aspect works, but we used to be a lot more in tune with things like that. And I think that's a lot more valuable. Like I have a bamboo toothbrush with boar bristles. Sometimes the boar bristles break and, I buy a new one, but at least I'm not brushing my teeth with little plastic chemicals, and who knows like how good or bad that actually is. But I want to be the one that makes that choice. Just crazy. Like tallow can be used for so many different things. Obviously, I'm using it for skincare. It's funny. The older people that I talk to, they used to eat with it as a kid. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, where did that go? And then new kids or new younger people only hear about it from TikTok. So it's like, you see how it's really unfortunate, but this generation is completely severing, especially in the West. A lot of it was in books, and you look at any old woman's cabinet, and they, even my mom, sorry mom if you're listening to this, but
I was like, wait, don't call your mom an old woman.
she'll understand. But in the cabinets, they have handwritten recipes and
Oh
all this
yeah.
stuff that was cute little handwritten notes, and those things just you don't see them very much anymore. So we just try to keep those things alive, try to keep that interpersonal connection alive and that
Mm.
knowledge transfer. I mean,
Yeah.
from the age of 0 to 2, I heard, I don't know how true this is, but from the age of 0 to 2, the brain is downloading more information than it does from 2 to 18, something along
Oh.
those lines. The human brain is like really small, an embryo, and then in a baby it's about this small, and
Mm.
we're learning so much information during that time. It's a huge responsibility on our shoulders to teach the younger generation the things that we've learned and try to maintain as much information we can.
When people did live on farms, they probably did use the whole animal, and they probably didn't need lotion because they already were using the tallow.
That's right. Yeah. And you think about, I eat a lot of ground beef, but the reality is we miss out on so many key nutrients, bone marrow. How many people are really buying
Yeah.
bones? I don't even know where all the bones go, because there's a lot of bones in a cow, and I don't see any of them at the grocery store. So I don't know
That's
like who's getting the bones, who's getting the short end of the stick there. Maybe all the dogs
that's a
are getting
good
it. I don't know,
point.
because I see plastic dog bones, and I just like
Yeah.
I about lose it when I see that. But I'm just like, you have
That's
your
a
dog chewing on plastic. Like, what are we
That's a
doing?
really good point, and also, I actually met a very forward-thinking woman at the butcher, and she was buying a ton of bone marrow, and I said, "What are you buying bone marrow for?" And she said, "Baby food."
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. You can look up, I've seen these black and white images of where wherever the babies, like right after they get delivered, they like put them on the goat, like like the udder of the goat. They just put them on the
Oh.
goat. And I'm just like, huh, I wonder how the microbiome of that kid was 20 years later. But,
The follow-up part of my question to this two-part question, what's the most wild thing you've done with tallow?
I talked about making French fries. The whole like French fry thing is really mind blowing. I know that this is going to happen, and it already is kind of starting to happen. Tallow Organic out of California is doing this tallow in the French fry fryers. Um, but there is going to be a huge opportunity in healthy food. I know Gary Vaynerchuk talked about it recently as well. But healthy food is going to make such an amazing comeback in this country. Buyers are really smart nowadays. Thankfully, we're smart enough to see the difference, but we're also human, so we make the mistakes as well. When a company comes out and they decide we're going to stand on health and we're going to make tallow French fries, real tallow, not the Buffalo Wild Wings with BHT in it, real tallow French fries and fried foods, that company is going to skyrocket. And I think it's going to be something that nobody saw coming. And hopefully I can come back to this podcast in 5 years and be like, yeah, the thing that took down modern food chains was that. So it's just a matter of supply chain. Once they can get the cost figured out, that, I mean, the sky's the limit with health. So
I always say you vote with your dollar. So it really matters. And you're right. The consumer is getting more conscious about reading ingredients. You mentioned Buffalo Wild Wings. What's wrong with their tallow?
So they have a preservative called BHT in it, and I don't exactly remember all the problems with it, but I think it was like something neurotoxic. But really, I mean, who wants any type of preservative in any synthetic preservative to in a fryer that's being heated to hundreds of degrees? It's crazy.
Brandon, it's been such a delight speaking with you. But as we wrap up this podcast, I ask all my guests the same closing question, which is, what haven't I asked you that you'd like my listeners to know?
Uh, why are we here? I think everyone should ask themselves, like, this is a beautiful world. Again, we go back into the human body. It's like, this is an amazing, amazing thing that we are blessed with, all of us. We did not have to do anything to receive this life. I know there's some people that are less fortunate and they're born with certain things that make them feel like maybe life isn't worth living. You have perfectly healthy people that commit suicide. It's very sad. But we are blessed with amazing opportunity here in this life. Every single day is another opportunity to become more. First of all, let's just realize that this is all mind-blowing. We should all wake up every morning and go outside into our neighborhoods and be like, everyone should just be like, oh my gosh, what happened? I know I sound crazy, but really, we're on a floating rock. The odds of Earth even harboring a planet harboring life is like 1,000,000,000 to 1. Us even being born, we were the sperm that won the race. That's crazy. If you are still alive, I have my best friend passed away last year. It's really sad, actually. I just think, no, it's fine. It's just the fact that he was alive. I think life is a blessing. The fact that anyone's able to live a single day is I have a really hard time wrapping my mind around the fact that out of randomness in space, life was able to happen. Just ask yourself, do some digging on your own time. Albert Einstein said there's two choices that we can make. We can either decide that we live in a hostile world, or we can believe that we live in a peaceful world, a friendly world. And I believe in abundance for everyone. The truth and the way forward is on the inside. If I could just give you guys one piece, it's just to ask yourself the question of, why are we here?
I like what you mentioned about going outside and taking a look around and being in awe. That's how I feel when I watch sunrises and sunsets. I look around and I just thank God for this beautiful earth that we're on. And it's such a miracle to watch those sunrises and sunsets. They're limited for some people, for everyone.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I mean, we are all going to die, and it's a beautiful thing that we even get today. And then I'm super grateful to be here on your show. This is my first podcast ever. So, I was very nervous at the beginning, and hopefully it's the last time I'm ever that nervous, but I just super blessed, super thankful that you would have me.
Did a wonderful job today. It was so fun speaking with you. I can hear the passion in your voice, and I love that you have the idea of starting your own farm. Everything that you're doing feels like you're moving the needle. Please tell my listeners where they can go to buy Sacred Tallow.
Yeah, sacredtallow.com. It'll pop up any social media, Sacred Tallow, on Instagram, Sacred Tallow Co. You'll if you want to DM me, if you want to email info@sacredtallow.com, you'll get to write to my inbox. So I'm always happy to interact with you guys, and help you guys out in any way I can.
And for my listeners, they'll get a discount if they go to sacredtallow.com/Ashley Deeley. Brandon, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ashley. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed today's episode, a quick shout out on Instagram or leaving a review would make a positive difference. Or even better, share this podcast with someone you think might benefit from this information. You can get in touch with me on socials. I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is Ashley_Deeley. Until next time, this podcast is presented for educational and exploratory purposes only. The published content is not intended to be used for diagnosing or treating any illnesses, disease, or disorders. Those responsible for this show disclaim any responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of this information presented by myself or my guests. Please consult with your healthcare provider before using any products or services referenced in this podcast. Episodes on the Welcome to Wellness podcast may at times cover sensitive topics, including, but not limited to, depression, suicide, 5G, nootropics, circumcision, birth control, the Women's Health Initiative, the use of plants medicine, abortion, geoengineering, terrorism, gender, AI, and sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You are advised to refrain from listening to this podcast if you are likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. However, if these topics interest you, you just may have found your tribe. The information or opinions expressed on the Welcome to Wellness show are solely the views of the individuals involved and by no means represent absolute facts. Opinions expressed by the host and the guest can change at any time. The views of my guests are solely their views, and the Welcome to Wellness show does not accept responsibility for them. Any action you take based on the information contained within this podcast is strictly at your own risk. The Welcome to Wellness host, Ashley Deeley, will not be liable for any losses or damages in connections with the use of this podcast. You should take all necessary steps to ascertain the information you receive in this podcast is correct and has been verified. None of the guests or contributors on the Welcome to Wellness podcast will be responsible for your use of the information contained therein. Under no circumstances will the Welcome to Wellness show or my affiliates, partners, suppliers, licenses, or guests appearing on the show be liable for any direct or indirect consequences or damages arising from your ability or inability to access this podcast. All intellectual property rights belong to me, Ashley Deeley, and include but are not limited to the copyright and any other rights in the design. You are permitted to use the Welcome to Wellness podcast for personal use, but not for commercial use without license. You may not make recordings. If you breach these terms, you lose the right to the Welcome to Wellness podcast, and you must destroy or return any copies or recordings you've made. Guests on the Welcome to Wellness podcast may at times provide information or read extracts from third-party copyrighted work. The Welcome to Wellness podcast does not provide any medical or professional advice within these episodes and should not be used as a replacement for medical or clinical care. If you take any action or inaction as a result from the content you consume within the Welcome to Wellness podcast, this is based solely on your decision, and Ashley Deeley and the Welcome to Wellness podcast host and my guests cannot be held responsible or liable for any of the consequences of such action or inaction. Thank you.